Good morning, everybody. Dear colleagues, dear friends. Firstly, also on behalf of Anja Hazekamp, thank you all for joining us this morning to discuss this very important topic. Especially thank you to our speakers and to our fellow MEP colleagues like Petras, Austrevicius and Metz. Metz will arrive a little bit later. Unfortunately, the occasion of this event is not a happy one. Competitiveness is the most favorite word in this house. Translated, it means earning money, which brings us directly to soccer. Even though I'm not an expert, I know that billions are invested and spent there. FIFA will earn an estimated 8 billion euros for the next World Cup. And where money plays a role, people, nature and animals often suffer. Approximately 3 million free-roaming dogs live on the streets of Morocco. Thousands of them have already been rounded up and violently killed in the most horrific ways as part of the country's effort to clean up their streets. Moroccan dogs are being slaughtered indiscriminately, poison is laid in public spaces, catchers use brutal clamps to round up animals, and armed men openly blast dogs with shotguns, while helpless puppies are simply thrown into the trash. Today you will hear more about the situation on the ground from our speakers, who were brave enough to travel to Morocco and try to save as many dogs as possible. But why does this all happen? The Moroccan government want to present tourists and football fans with a representative street scene without stray animals. This cannot be a solution. Killing animals is never a solution. Only the neutering of street animals in accordance with animal welfare standards can provide a long-term solution. Every action must go hand in hand with educating the public. Successful animal welfare can only work if it's supported by the majority of the population. Among others, Jane Goodall has expressed concerns over the reports of horrific cullings of 3 million stray dogs ahead of the highly anticipated tournament, sparking widespread calls for action. However, despite multiple appeals from animal welfare organizations, FIFA has not taken a stand. I would like to point out that we contacted FIFA and the Moroccan government and demanded an answer, but we never heard back from them. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that stray dogs have to die for the sake of football. Stray dogs were also rounded up and killed in a very similar way in the run-up to Euro 2012 in Ukraine. We are sure that many football fans around the world do not support this practice and will boycotting this World Cup, as was the case with Ukraine. For how long will FIFA and UEFA tolerate these murders? We are sure that many football fans around the world do not support this practice and will be boycotting this World Cup. A little break on the topic. Otherwise, animal welfare can be realized if you don't eat animals. So the plant-based, guilt-free breakfast buffet is open. Thank you all for participating in this meeting, and I wish you all a fruitful discussion. Thank you all for being part of this discussion. Now we will start, after my short opening, with interventions and remarks and ideas from my colleague Petras.
Thank you, Sebastian. Good morning to everybody. And indeed, my great thanks to those who are involved in Morocco stray dogs and animals issues already for some time. I know it's time-consuming, not necessarily pleasant, but it's necessary. Why we're speaking about this today again and again, Sebastian rightly mentioned that no response from FIFA. By the way, no surprise. International sports organizations are like, isolated castles. I mean, they live their own lives. I mean, they have lots in the coffins, meaning money, a lot of influence over the sport associations, but they, in fact, very slow to react to our request, whatever it takes. Animal rights, human animal rights. I mean, not once we made the references to football, to ice hockey associations and the rest. And then we hear some very noisy scandals in certain associations and leagues. Anyway, I think we have the right and even responsibility to revert to this issue. Why? Because European Union and Morocco has long-standing relations. We have association agreements standing from 2000. So it was translated into very beneficial, by the way, economic cooperation. It's not very low figures, by the way, for your knowledge. So we import around a couple of dozens billion of goods and services from each side to another, meaning that association agreement has a very sound economic base. But it's not just about economy. It's about sectorial cooperation, including the animal welfare. And although there are no probably explicit obligations, but there is a mentioning of respect of the animal welfare standards in all our major international agreements, including Morocco. So that's why it's not for nothing. It's not based off our, let's say, extra demand towards Morocco. And Morocco must respond. Morocco government must respond. Sebastian mentioned that there is not yet any reply back from the government, but let's be insistent. I would probably call for another call. I don't know when the previous letter was sent to Morocco government this year or
This year, yes.
this year. So let's do in March. Okay, so we're already in a fourth month from the previous letter. We can remind maybe before summer break with another letter. Let's be insistent. It creates a certain pressure, and politicians and governments usually are not really in favor of having external or internal pressures. But this is our mean, a civilized mean, and let's use it to full extent. Which is important, by the way, to understand and acknowledge that killing or culling of stray dogs in Morocco in a very brutal way is against domestic laws in Morocco. It's not allowed, I mean, in Morocco to kill stray dogs. By the way, they had a plan to manage the system in a different way. Probably they realized that from 25 to 30, it's too little of time, maybe efforts, maybe coordination, and will and readiness from the government, from the authority side to take any effective measures. So they abandoned previously approved reasonable plan how to curb the situation, and they use most primitive and most brutal way of elimination of those unlucky animals. So that's why we have to make the reference to the domestic laws of Morocco in our letter, because it's an open breach of all the domestic rule of law-based principles. And indeed, Morocco is much about tourism. It's about image of the country, not just in Europe, but worldwide. I think it's not the same for the Moroccan government to follow those, criticism coming from EU, from other international actors about Morocco, because image will suffer. Fewer tourists might come. Usually, as we know, people are very sensitive to animal welfare, and they react in a positive way. So that's why let's connect those dots: domestic laws, image of Morocco, and again, I think we have to call on EU institutions to react. If the association agreement is in place for 25 years, So we have, by the way, developed a very comprehensive framework of cooperation, much about governance, energy, green transition, by the way, and not just pushing Moroccan government towards certain targets, but giving affluent financial support. We're speaking about billions. So that's why money given by the European Union must be responsibly spent. We have to see results from these investments in our cooperation with Morocco, and to be a responsible partner. I think this is a very important issue for any country which has such extensive relations with the European Union. Indeed, apart from Morocco, I would look for some more sensitive ways how to present this situation in a way people understand. If we could find any footballer with the dog on his hands and making a good record. So football is not against dogs. So we are for dogs' welfare. We respect animal welfare. A kind of call for Moroccan government in a PR way, in communications, communicating this issue in a very sensitive way, and probably from those who will play on the fields in Morocco, we might reach more people and explain this issue, because I'm not sure that everybody in Europe or worldwide understands the situation. And rightly, we're speaking after all about more than 3 million dogs. It's quite a population. I have to admit, it's numbers are really crying for our action and support. So that's why let's not abandon. We know that sometimes first signals, first responses are very disappointing, but we are here, to break the wall, not to build a wall. So that's why let's break this wall of silence, of no response, with a more creative approach, with more insisting approach towards institutions which have to react. And, it can't be so in 21st century, by the way. It will be on the record. It will be on a let's say, bad side of history if we keep silence and we don't move accordingly. So we have to be, on the side of those who suffer, and calling for those who have responsibility to act accordingly. So that's why I fully support this call. Ready to join for any actions. Maybe even MEPs can plan a trip to Morocco. Why not? In coming autumn. But definitely let's use before all possible channels and means to push this issue forward, to indeed to protect those who are in suffering, meaning stray dogs. Thank you.
Thank you, Petras.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gitty Fardjam Andalib, and I'm delighted to be here on behalf of VETO Tierschutz. We are a German nonprofit organization dedicated to animal welfare. We're working in close partnership with around 350 organizations across Europe through a strong and growing international network. Our mission is to protect stray animals, support animal shelters, and drive sustainable solutions in animal welfare in Europe and beyond. Through donation campaigns, awareness initiatives, and protest actions, we inspire tens of thousands of people every year to take a stand for animal welfare. Our vision is a future without stray animals, not because they were killed or hidden, but because humans have taken responsibility. With compassion, infrastructure, and long-term commitment, we can solve this man-made crisis. Morocco marks only the third time we are extending our focus beyond the EU, driven by the devastating impact the upcoming World Cup is already having on the country's stray animal population. Nummer 3 und Nummer 4. So what did we observe in Morocco? We didn't see stray dogs in Marrakesh. The first ones appeared outside the city. They were scared, living near a garbage disposal site. In Essaouira, about 200 kilometers from Marrakesh, we spoke with expats and locals who regularly witness dogs disappearing overnight. We met with a local shelter and a vet who are open to collaboration. The shelter, located in the desert, is operated by a single person and one employee under basic conditions. Despite this, they currently care for 65 dogs. Nummer 5. In contrast, the large government-run shelter in Essaouira was nearly empty. Only 2 dogs and no infrastructure in place to provide care for animals. None of this came as a surprise. These findings are consistent with the concerns raised by locals and media reports for years. Number 6. During our stay, we mostly found evidence that the government initiative which had been in place from 2019 to 2024 to solve the stray animal issue humanely by promoting TNVR had no visible impact. We saw very few neutered cats in Essaouira. In the surfer village Sidi Kauki, we interacted with the first neutered, vaccinated, friendly, and well-fed dogs. However, their ear tags indicated that all of them were neutered or vaccinated by local organizations, none by the government. While we were in Morocco, the government proposed a new law to expand the TNVR program and to raise its budget to 100 million euros. However, there needs to be greater public and media awareness, and we require accountability measures that demonstrate the money is indeed being used for its intended purpose. We found a consensus among expats and locals that dogs are regularly being killed by the government, regardless of being tagged as neutered and vaccinated. Nummer 7. Und Nummer 8. What solutions do we propose? At VETO, campaigns are our most powerful tool for raising funds to support sustainable animal welfare work and to create lasting infrastructure on the ground. Since neutered and vaccinated dogs are still being killed, we focus on raising awareness, educating the public, and advocating for humane alternatives. We have a very loyal and dedicated community that is growing. Our petition against the culling of stray dogs in Morocco has already garnered over 20,000 signatures in just under a month. Together with our local partners, we will create safe spaces for the dogs. We will provide medical care, vaccinations, neutering, food, and most importantly, protection. Nummer 9. We have the solutions. Now it's time to use the next 5 years to implement them. Nummer 10. We must act together. At VETO, we believe that animal welfare should not stop at borders, and neither should responsibility. The EU and Morocco must collaborate to establish a humane and sustainable path forward. The World Cup is a global event that generates billions in revenue and attracts worldwide attention, but it also brings global responsibility. People, whether football fans or not, will not accept the killing of millions of animals as collateral damage. So let's prove together that it's possible to address this issue of stray animals with compassion, the creation of infrastructure, and cooperation. Let's set an example that reaches far beyond Morocco. Nummer 11. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Gitty. Now we will start with our first round of questions and answers, and then we will return to Alexandra from the RSPCA. Are there any questions here in the room?
Leslie Stevenson, Graceland for Dogs in Switzerland. I would be very, very grateful if I could have copies of the slides that are being shown today, for the simple reason that I'm a freelance journalist and I have been building, as a supporter of VETO for the past year, a press with articles and pictures to present to the press in Switzerland. Having the facts, particularly the ones that we heard from our second speaker, even if we couldn't see them, would be very valuable for me. Is that possible?
Yes, sure, absolutely. Robert, maybe you can put our email contact in the chat or send it directly to Leslie, and then we will stay in contact and we will send all of the presentation to you.
That would be great. Thank you very much, because I'm extremely involved here. I've been in Turkey working. I plan to go to Morocco shortly. If we're going to put this to the press, we have to have hard facts and we have to have been in the places ourselves, in my view. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions from online or here in the room? Andreas.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if it would be an option to involve also Portugal and Spain in the whole discussion, because they are directly involved in the organization of the World Cup and might be able to help to convince the Moroccan authorities. And another option could be to write to the King of Morocco, because he seems to be quite animal welfare friendly. He also addressed his country regarding Eder Kebir and asked to use more humane slaughter practices. So I guess that he has a certain sensitivity for this.
Good morning, and thank you for organizing this. Just a question, if you have thought, I'm not particularly aware of the issue, but I'm thinking if you have any thoughts of getting in contact with the fan base of football clubs. Okay, this is the World Cup, but in Germany, for example, like the Borussia Dortmund fans, they are like very critical against modern football. And I suppose an issue like this would be in their interest. So they can be, while the game's on, they can have like a banner saying no killing of stray dogs. So it could raise awareness, and the message can be projected to millions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jo Swade from Humane World for Animals. Just a quick suggestion. I mean, there's a delegation of the Parliament to the Maghreb countries. Maybe I missed something at the beginning, but perhaps it would be good to activate MEPs on that delegation to write a letter.
Another idea, we in the Parliament, we have a football team. Maybe this could be a group that could be rounded up to build pressure on this. And we also have an MEP in the left, an Italian one that's a former football player. So maybe she would want to be vocal about it.
Thank you for all the good ideas. Any more questions? Then we will end the first round of questions and answers. And we will skip over to Luca Secker, the scientific officer for companion animals from the German Animal Welfare Organization.
Thank you. So yeah, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak here. It is a topic very close to my heart. Next, please. And as many of you are politicians here, I think it's much easier for you to research the hard facts about the economic status, the distribution and such. So I've decided to take a bit of a different approach and want to provide you with some anecdotes from my time in Morocco. I've lived there for half a year and conducted an internship studying free-ranging dogs and the free-ranging dogs project of the Veterinary University of Vienna. And I think these anecdotes might provide a more tangible way to understanding the intricacies, but also the relevance of protecting free-ranging dogs in Morocco. So the project, just to give you a bit of an overview, involved observational, non-invasive methods of experiments with free-ranging dogs. But I also conducted studies on the attitudes towards free-ranging dogs, both of the local population, and compared that with the tourist attitudes of Western tourists. Because the area where we studied the dogs was near Agadir in Tagazout, which is a surfing hotspot and thus very, very touristic. But we went up just the hills from the coastline, 10 minutes inside of the country, and there you didn't have any tourists anymore. And yeah, on one of those days, I was just leaving the poorest household in one of those villages where you had mattresses on the floor. It was 2 rooms for a multi-generational family. It was obvious that they had very little food available. They were really poor people, but they were interested in speaking to us about them animals. And I left with my later. We were just walking across the village square. And there in the village square in the midday heat, it was still really hot. There was a dog lying there, a mother dog starving to death. The puppies lying around her. And she was too already to move out of the heat. We had to keep on walking. This was something that was not unusual in Morocco, seeing dogs starving. And we went on our way and a dog came charging towards us very aggressively. And that was a dangerous situation. And the only thing that helped us were the locals that protected us. But this dog was actually doing his job and protecting the village from strangers and from wild animals. So he was doing a good job in that. And we kept on walking, and the next household that was open to speaking to us was the richest family in this village. And they invited us in, and in the front yard, they were just rinsing off the blood from a cow that had just been slaughtered for the next day because they were having a wedding ceremony. We went in, and there were piles and piles of pastries. So this was a very rich family for there. But the interesting thing to me was that both families were interested in the dogs, and both of them told us to be careful because the dogs can be dangerous and they do carry deadly diseases. And that is something that I think we need to remember. Morocco is a country where rabies is still endemic. And there's still a double-digit number of human deaths annually. According to the Pasteur Institute from Morocco, it's about 20 deaths per year. If you look at the GARC numbers, so Global Alliance to Combating Rabies, I think, they say it's about 80, and 40% of those are children. So during our trips, asking the people about their opinions on dogs, many of them asked us why we care for the dogs, and they implied that we do not care for the humans, and that hit hard. But I want to get back to that later because that is not true. But I understand their point of view because just up in the coast, up in the hills from the coastline, 10 minutes, if their grandfather would have a heart attack, the ambulance would only arrive in hours. So this would be a death sentence for that person. And another day, I was just finishing my shift of observations on the beach, seeing the dogs playing there, living a free life. Actually there, they were very, very well fed, both by the locals and by the tourists. And many of them had ear clips because in that area an NGO was active. And I finished my shift, my supervisor picked me up and she told me about some news in Morocco. And that was that in the village of Sidi Boulaalam, just an hour up from where we were doing the observations, and near Essaouira, there was a food aid distribution on that day. And that caused a stampede. And 15 people died during that stampede, and 40 were injured. So Morocco is a developing middle-income country with poignant disparity between the citizens and a high number of free-ranging dogs. You heard it before, it's about 3 million dogs. And considering the scarce resources among large parts of the human population and the actual threat that dogs can pose, it is understandable that the human population wants solutions to mitigate those risks. And again, I met a lot of people that were very, very committed in feeding and taking care of the dogs. But these risks are real and we need solutions for that. Unfortunately, as dogs are the main vector for rabies, which is still endemic in large parts of the world, many countries opt for culling practices, believing that this will reduce the number of dogs and hence the risks posed by them. Fortunately, while I was in Morocco, I did not witness any culling taking place in Tagazout. But there was this one story of a dog called Debbie that I knew. I saw her daily. She was owned by one of the shops there. But free ranging, it's not usual to take the animals in. And I saw a video of this dog, which I will not show here, bleeding out in the street, shot by a shotgun. The shop owner stood in front of the dog and the officers that were mandated to shoot this dog told him to move out of the way or either he would be incarcerated. And you do not want to be incarcerated in Morocco. So he moved out of the way. And seeing that dog that I had just met a few weeks ago, touched and stroked and all, bleeding out in the street, in a public space, in a very touristic space, shot in public, that was horrific. But this is the reality in Morocco. Dogs are killed with strychnine, shot with shotguns, or captured in very, very cruel ways, and then either locked up and starved to death, or killed there inhumanely. And the horrid thing about that is that all best practice guidelines, and you will hear about that from Alex later on, do recommend humane population management methods. And these are not just the guidelines that are focused on animal welfare, such as from ICAM or WOHA, so World Organization for Animal Health, but also those that focus on human health. So WHO and GARC, which connects both issues, they all say that humane methods that focus on reproductive control, specifically trap, neuter, vaccinate, and release, in order to create a stable population in which you can actually achieve herd immunity through vaccination against rabies in this case, will protect humans and animals alike. And this will actually also decrease humanely the numbers of dogs over time. And this is something that is acknowledged in the TNVR agreement by the Moroccan government that was passed in 2019 by the Ministry of Interior, the General Directorate of Local Authorities, the National Office for Food Safety, the Ministry of Health, and the National Veterinary Authority. They also have obligations to evaluate and monitor and publish these results, which I'm still searching for, by the way. And they do mention in the agreement that the numbers should be reduced, diseases should be prevented, it should be sustainable, it is less expensive. We know that also from our own calculations. It's humane and it protects humans. So we know that the Moroccan government knows all of those things. But please, next slide. And they have actually funded some things. You can find financial reports from 2019, but we are not sure where this money actually went. And if you look at the reports of NGOs, they say something different. Before October 2023, around 300,000 dogs were killed annually in Morocco. And now NGOs suspect that this number will double, meaning that up until the FIFA World Cup, almost all 3 million dogs are supposed to be killed. And you do hear a different story in the Moroccan news about that. But we do believe that the reports of the NGOs are not unsubstantiated. And because of that, we are happy that many people took action. The letters were sent also by the International Animal Welfare Coalition together with Jane Goodall. We followed up on that and initiated as Deutscher Tierschutzbund together with the Eurogroup and several more members a letter to FIFA as well in January. Surprise, we did not receive a response. But we do believe that there's still enough time for Morocco to take a different pathway. And that is why we will keep on building pressure. And if you look at the FIFA bid, can you put the next slide, please? Yeah, if you look at the bid that Morocco has handed in together with Spain and Portugal as hosts, I could not find the word animal mentioned at all. But then if you read the FIFA bid evaluation report, where they visited Morocco and looked at the country and all the claims, they say that Morocco has committed to the protection of animal rights. They say that culling is prohibited since August 2024 and that the support programs are expanded. Another report you can find is from FIFA's sustainability strategy, and they also mention that animal rights will be protected and those animals affected by the tournament will be handled humanely. So again, we do believe that the NGO reports are true, but we also know that the NGOs in Morocco running shelters cannot speak up for themselves because they have to protect the animals in their care, and they run a real risk if they speak up that something happens. So we think that it is time to lobby for the dogs with FIFA, but also especially the Moroccan government to uphold them to live up to their pledges. As I said, so far we have no response, but we are willing to take the next step in lobbying. Next slide, please. For that, as you've heard between the lines, gathering information in Morocco is not as easy. So we want verifiable information. And building on that, we want to approach the Moroccan government, but also, of course, FIFA and football associations. Of course, also football players, stakeholders such as sponsors and such, and slowly and stepwise build up pressure if Morocco is not taking our hand, because we want to help. We want to collaborate with them. And if they are willing, we hope that we can help them get back on the right path. But if they are not willing, we will build pressure and we will raise awareness about this topic. And as you've heard before, football fans often are also quite animal friendly, and we do hope that they have an open heart for this topic. Yeah. And thank you for your attention. And yeah. thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Luca. Before we will start with the last round of questions, I see directly in the eyes of Alexandra should we try a third one? Are you ready with your screen? Okay.
Drinka advised me that it's all good now. I think she's got a PDF version. So if
Great.
she can run the PDF version, we can start. Third time lucky.
Presentation is ready. Fine,
excellent.
perfect.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Alexandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your patience. So I'll try to run through those quite quickly so that we have enough time for a discussion at the end. So my name is Alexandra Hammond-Seaman. I'm with the RSPCA based in the UK. RSPCA is a member of the ICAM coalition. Next slide, please. Which is an international coalition for companion animal management, formed in 2006. It's really all of our members are international charities or international specialist groups, and our mission is to support the development of humane and effective dog and cat population management globally. We publish joint guidance documents, and I'll be referring quite a lot to our main humane dog population management guidance document, which was published in 2019. We run conferences and webinars, and this is a good opportunity to invite everyone to join our webinar next week. It runs from Monday to Friday, 12 till 2, so please feel free to register on ICAM website. And we also host free online courses. I'll give you a link at the end of my presentation, both extremely useful for DPM managers and policymakers. Next slide, please. I think I already referred to the World Organization for Animal Health, and I think it is very important that we run through the main principles of the standard, the well-known chapter 7.7 for dog population management, which was originally adopted in 2009, a stray dog population control chapter, but was then revised and presented and adopted at the 89th annual general session with a significant text overhaul. And as I already said, VOA comprises 182 members. Morocco is a member, and as such is expected to implement the guidelines into its national legislation. Chapter title changed from stray dog population control to dog population management, and the acronym of the DPM appears as well but this gives emphasis to an important point, which is that dog population management needs to take a systems approach that address the whole dog population, importantly addressing sources of future free roaming dogs. So again, I'll talk a little bit more when we traditionally refer to stray dogs and when we see this when we look at the dog population as a much broader picture. Next slide, please. Free roaming dogs in the chapter are defined as any owned dog or an owned dog that is without direct human supervision and control. And it also lists possible sources of free roaming dogs, which are owned dogs that roam freely, dogs that have been lost and abandoned, including puppies resulting from uncontrolled breeding of owned dogs, and unowned dogs that reproduce. Next slide, please. As I said, the important difference in the chapter, in the adopted or a revised chapter, is that the DPM needs to take a systems approach that addresses the whole dog population. Often the measures that are implemented address the current street dogs or the visible dog population, but it does very little to address the future populations and the sources of future dogs. And that's sometimes why we see that despite quite a good understanding of what DPM is, and sometimes even, now we have, there are no excuses really not to do DPM properly. We have plenty of know-how, we've got lots of technical expertise, we understand that there is so much more science that has evolved over the last 20 years, looking at the dynamics of dog populations and how to go about it and what works, what doesn't work. There is very little excuse not to do it properly, but I think we still, and that's why often maybe people involved in DPM maybe give up or don't see things through because maybe the measures that are implemented don't bring the desired results, but often they don't bring the desired results because the interventions are not looking and targeting the entire dog population and most importantly focusing on the sources of dogs. And the chapter also has an increased emphasis on responsible dog ownership, the relevance of own dogs and own behavior, which has a significant impact and implications for the dogs that eventually end up on the street. So the chapter acknowledges that the own dog population is a common source of free roaming dogs, and DPM programs should consider all dogs. Next slide, please. There has also been a tendency for national governments to dismiss DPM as a local authority issue, leaving a gap in central legislation, funding and attention to the issue. So this updated version also clarifies the role of the national government and calls for explicitly recommends that the national action plan for DPM should be adopted. But we know that the measures and the implementations mostly fall to the local government, but this national plan should enable local implementation of dog population management programs, whilst respecting that these programs will need to be tailored for the local dog population dynamics. Next slide, please. I think Luca already mentioned a very important issue, which is rabies. Morocco is rabies endemic. There are still significant human deaths from rabies, and the contribution of dog population management to rabies control is clearly an important issue, not least for the World Organization for Animal Health, who have stated their commitment to zero rabies by 2030. And they also provide an international standard for rabies elimination and a rabies vaccine bank for those countries with robust plan for rabies elimination. Importantly, plan for rabies elimination must include a recognized dog population management element. So the updated chapter makes several references to chapter 8.14, the rabies elimination chapter. And we know that the DPM can contribute to rabies control specifically through reducing turnover, reducing breeding behaviors, and encouraging responsible ownership, including proactive efforts to vaccinate dogs regularly. Next slide, please. There is also one change which includes NGOs within the definition of veterinary services, which means the governmental and non-welfare measures and other standards and recommendations by the terrestrial code. NGOs are also mentioned as a relevant stakeholder within advisory groups supporting the development of DPM programs and national action plans. Next slide, please. What stays the same in the chapter from the original chapter is the first rule of veterinary care, first do no harm. And one could argue that this is a primary role of this is to guide veterinarians around the world in how to improve health and welfare without causing harm in the process. In keeping with this role, the introduction to the adapted chapter includes the clear statement, it is important to manage dog populations without compromising animal welfare. The retention of the statement that euthanasia of dogs used alone is not effective, it remains, with the related new statement in the introduction that recognizing that mass culling of dogs is ineffective and might be counterproductive, reducing dog population size is not an effective means of reducing rabies prevalence. Next slide, please. And this is from in the next slide, this is from the WHO expert consultation on rabies, again stating that removal of dogs does not decrease dog density or control rabies in the long run. Mass culling of dogs should therefore not be a part of rabies control strategy. It is ineffective and may be counterproductive to vaccination programs, particularly when they target free-roaming dogs. Next slide, please. The chapter puts a particular emphasis on the importance of changing and promoting responsible human behaviors when managing dog populations. That should be a guiding principle, really, in all of our work. And DPM is recognizes that DPM is a multi-sectorial issue and benefits from the guidance of multi-stakeholder advisory group. Next slide, please. Sorry, this was a very quick run through the VOA chapter 7.7. You are all very welcome to look at it yourself. It's on VOA website. just put in 7.7 dog population management, and you can look at the detail of the guidance. But we believe if that guidance if the standard is effectively and properly implemented, it would lead to a significant reduction in dog population size, but also improve dog welfare enormously. Now I will quickly run through the principles as we see them in our dog population, in our ICAM dog population management guidance. Again, both our guidance and VOA dog population management chapter are very complementary, really. And as you will see, ICAM believes in very similar principles of DPM, which are that DPM must be humane and ethical, both because we are an animal welfare coalition, but also dog owners and carers are not going to fully engage in a system that is cruel or unfair, and such system would be inherently ineffective. It must be adapted to local dog population dynamics. So we believe in a principle that one size doesn't fit all, and we need to really address the specifics of any. We know that there'll be very different populations of dogs and subpopulations of dogs, and differences between rural and urban areas and different communities. So we have to have a system that is targeting a particular dog population dynamics. It needs to be sustained and adaptive, which means that the system needs to be permanent but also adapted over time. The TPS system you will need now will be different in 20 years' time. We believe that the design, monitoring and evaluation must have an evidence base, so we must really understand very clearly what problems are we trying to solve. It needs to focus on root causes. Here I will elaborate a little bit more on that, because traditionally the interventions focus on the visible population of free roaming dogs, but doesn't often target the future sources of dogs. And I think this is why it is so misleading and so wrong to think that we can cull our way out of the issue, because the belief that today you will euthanize or cull 5,000 dogs and you will have no dogs tomorrow, it's absolutely not true, because until we address the source of dogs, we will forever be battling and processing new unwanted dogs. So and the central role is human behavior, because as domesticated animal that relies on people for survival, we must work with what people actually do with dogs in order to manage the populations. Next slide, please. So focus on root causes. I already mentioned that there is a very big difference between stray control, which focuses only on the symptom of the current roaming dogs and includes reliance on culling or shelters to clear the streets of roaming animals, versus population management, which is working on sources of roaming animals to address the future problems. So we do believe in building the sustained and adaptive system, population management system, which is permanent and adapted over time. Next slide, please. And where we are striving towards positive relationships between humans and animals. Next slide, please. I think I already covered the stray control and population management. So building a system, we need the systemic approach to this issue if we are going to have see long-term sustained outcomes. I think we need to build a dog population management system. Next slide, please. We often see the two relevant services used in combination, maybe holding facilities, rehoming centers or shelters for relinquishing dogs and removing dogs from the streets for uniting and rehoming. And then we see reproduction control and veterinary care provided to unknown dogs using catch-neuter vaccine in return. There are considerations for each, including the local context and the characteristics of the individual animal. Next slide, please. And then I said another important principle is that dog population management must address what people do with their dogs. Human behavior is the key driver of dynamic processes in dog population. Next slide, please. Again, it's the successful DPM intervention has to be accompanied by a change in human behavior. And also we do need to have a community participation, because even the best designed DPM program will fail if the community is not on board with it. And then we also put a strong emphasis on evidence-based design monitoring and evaluation, because often the interventions happen and we actually don't know whether the interventions are reaching the desired outcomes and whether they're in fact impactful and bringing the results we would like to see. Next slide, please. So just very quickly, just a very quick run through the dog population management, dog population dynamics. So next slide, please. Which is the traditional straight dog control has a very narrow perception, and considering all roaming dogs to be unknown and the sole focus of control efforts. That is not true. This might involve culling on the streets, catch and kill, catch and reunite or rehome. Next slide, please. But when we broaden our perspective, we see not only the current roaming dogs, but all the subpopulations that make up the whole dog population. We also see the dynamic processes involved in population dynamics. Some of those processes are important sources of future roaming dogs, such as free roaming and abandonment of own dogs, often driven by unwanted breeding and irresponsible ownership. Next slide, please. So the important thing to highlight is that the dog population management is not a short-term project with a predetermined endpoint. As long as people own animals, there will be unwanted consequences of animal ownership. So the perspective that we can just cull enough of the free roaming dogs or build enough shelters to put them into and the job will be done and the streets will be clear, it's just a fallacy. It's an untruth, and it will not lead to, it will not bring the results that we want to see. Because when we focus only on the removal of the current free roaming population, these populations of dogs rebound or replenish on the streets. Next slide, please. Okay, I think this is next. I think there's a little bit of with the PDF, it doesn't really, I can't. No, go to the previous slide. I can't animate some of the interactions I had on the previous slide. So when we look at the dog population, dog population as a whole, and as this system of interconnected subpopulations, we can start to see what population dynamic processes need to be addressed by different services within that DPM system. So when I say comprehensive, I mean that the DPM services match the dynamics that are a priority in that population, which is that we are focusing on the right dogs that are going to have the strongest results, the strongest impact on the population size. This in my presentation, this would be animated, and you could see these interactions between those different. But apologies for that. But you can see the actual diagram, the actual picture on ICAM website. So I think which might be useful if you want to explore some of those dynamics. But so the important thing is that those dynamics and might not differ just between countries, but within communities, within countries, varying between urban and rural communities, with communities with different religious and economic backgrounds. So it is so important to really understand the situation. I think it is so critical, because we otherwise we are wasting limited resources with little effect. So I can't overemphasize how important it is to develop evidence-based design to target the specifics of the dog population that in a locality or the specific of the targets, the specifics of our particular dog population that we are trying to address. So yeah, it's of course, if we find, for example, that the failure to reunite a dog to reunite it with its owner is a significant source of free roaming dogs, then we would want to introduce identification and registration. If you find it's the impulse acquisition, or poor health and behavior leading to subsequent abandonment, then we need to control the commercial breeding and selling of dogs. But of course, the most persistent dynamic process will be birth, and specifically for population management, unwanted births. So our goal is not to eliminate the entire dog population, but it's to create the balance in the number and type of dogs that are born with what is wanted and manageable. And so important as well for rabies elimination and rabies control to ensure that we have that and achieve that herd immunity. So very quickly to summarize, what is a DPM, dog population management? It's a comprehensive set of services and measures which are either addressing the symptoms, which are the series of actions to mitigate risks of current free roaming dog population, or to address the causes, which is addressing looking to stem the source of future unwanted dogs. I very quickly summarized a little bit of the VOA Chapter 7.7 and our ICAM guidance. Both you can find online. And also there are a couple of courses online which we have on ICAM, which actually runs you through to both of those guidance documents, the VOA standards and our ICAM dog population management guidance. Next slide, please. Sorry, I forgot to ask you to move the slides. So next slide, please. So there are our guidance documents. Next slide, please. There are other very useful resources we have on ICAM website. Next slide, please. There are the two courses I just mentioned. Next slide, please. We've also developed the Talea app, which is the tool for which is an app tool for surveying dog populations. So again, lots of self-explanatory information and guidance on ICAM website. And there is a whole other host of materials translated in numerous languages. And as I said, you're all welcome to join our ICAM webinar next week. Next slide, please. And I think that's all from me. Apologies once again for the delay. And I hope I haven't run too quickly through this, but there was quite a lot to cover. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. It was a very good decision to wait for your presentation. Now we will start the second round of questions and answers. Are there any questions here in the room or from online participants? Then our experts can answer on it.
Sebastian, with helpful and impressive presentations. For me, the core question now is, how do you put together the expertise of the people who've spoken today in order to support the campaign going forward?
So I am, together with the Eurogroup, running a campaign where we are hoping, of course, to find collaborators. Deutscher Tierschutzbund will try to take the lead on it, coordinating it, because just everyone is lacking capacities. But please do reach out to me if the presentations are shared. You can find my email address on the very last slide, and I'm happy to find any new person that wants to participate.
I also want to stress that what the government does with killing a whole population of dogs in one village actually increases rabies, because then the weak dogs who wouldn't have a chance in their territory will expand. So it's the same with, again, killing a whole population of dogs will then make the dogs that come after more resilient. So I think it's very important to stress that we have all the facts and we have all the solutions. And just also because we know when we were in Morocco, we know who tagged the dogs, because every NGO has their own method of tagging. So if the government would be forced to have their own tags, we could really see what happens, what the government does, where does the money go. So I think it's really about, we have the solutions, we need to put pressure on the government, and then we need to control what is really happening, because it's not a question of time or money. We have 5 years. So I think it's really a question of, we have the facts, we need to educate the public, we need to educate the people, and then the measures that are being put in place need to be controlled, that they really are being put in place. So yeah, I think it's important to collaborate then to implement those things and to control those things that are really then being done or not.
Exactly that is my question. How are those measures going to be coordinated? Is there already a plan, or is that something which is being looked at the moment?
That is something we're looking at. So first of all, we need to gather more verifiable information. We do see, if we have a close look at the agreement, that evaluation and monitoring is part of what should be done, but we do not see those reports. It's just hard to find them. Even finding the TNVR agreement was hard. And then I think there need to be different approaches. So I do think we need to approach the Moroccan government. We need to give them the chance and support them in these efforts, but of course also control that these efforts are being put in place. And then if that does not happen, then slowly you can build up pressure. But this will need to be a campaign, and that is just in the planning currently. But please, Leslie, do reach out to me. I'm happy to be in contact.
Look, I'm reaching out to all of you, and I just have to say this. I am a former employee of FIFA, and I will have an open door to go there and speak to them at some point in the near future. But what I won't do, because I'll only get one chance, what I won't do is to go there before I can go with facts and figures and say we now have a concerted base of this, and this organization who are going to be putting pressure into the system in the build up to this football season. There has to be a very concerted campaign about to happen or already happening for me to go there, because once I'm there, if I blow it, I won't get back there.
Thank you, Leslie. Next question, please.
Yes, thank you. I mean, in essence, I wanted to follow up on the implementation of what is happening on the ground, but sort of you addressed it. But then the follow-up can be in terms of addressing it on a higher political level. Now we even have a commissioner for animal welfare, maybe not the happiest out there in terms of the name, but at least I think, what do you think there needs to happen so that the Commission can raise it to the highest level? Because I think the way for it to work in Morocco, or any, I mean, I'm not just targeting Morocco, but since this is the case, the way to work is actually if we leverage it at the highest level so that we actually have an effective implementation of these measures.
So I think the first thing that needs to happen is that we all understand, and that this becomes public knowledge, that the solutions that we propose are not only helping the animals, because of course I do think that's a sufficient reason. I think animals should be protected for their own sake. But we know that the solutions we propose are sustainable, they are less cost intensive, they do protect animals, and they do protect humans. So I think this message, which is basically the core of the One Health movement, One Health, One Welfare, that needs to be spread. And then we can see a win-win-win situation. We have calculations of our own, but there's also lots of studies on this issue, or more and more studies, that if you invest enough money, we calculated this for Romania, within 5 to 7 years, it's less cost intensive than the culling practices. It just needs to be an investment now in Morocco. And we have heard before how much money will be earned We know that big sports events go hand in hand with high investments in countries. So why not allocate some of that money to Morocco? And I think that's the major message that we need to get across to politicians, to governments, to all stakeholders involved.
I also want to say that it could serve as an example, like it could serve as an example for the future Morocco if things are being done right. And we talked about tourism, we talked about investors, we talked about the FIFA making a lot of money. So I think that's also a good, route to take to say, hey, this could serve as an example, to go the positive way as well. Putting pressure, but then say, we did this. We took 5 years and now the problem has been solved and the dogs are safe, the people are safe, and Morocco was an example of how to do it. I think that could also be a good approach.
So last call for questions and last call for the breakfast is nearly full. Tim.
Thank you, Sebastian. So I'm working for the Dutch Party for the Animals. It was great having detailed info on this. I think we all have the same concerns about this. I think Andreas from the Eurogroup made a really good suggestion that we maybe could address another letter to the King of Morocco. Leslie, our journalist participating online, she was looking for higher policy initiatives. So maybe we could coordinate a letter from the intergroup for animals. So the intergroup, I don't know Leslie's background, but the intergroup is an official parliamentary body. So if we could organize to send a letter from the intergroup with several members of European Parliament, maybe. All right. Thanks. So I'm looking forward to it, Sebastian.
Thank you very much, Tim. I mentioned it's already part of my conclusion, but are there any more questions before my conclusion? That's not the fact. So again, thank you all for participating today. This morning, we heard a lot of heartbreaking and horrific informations, but there's also hope. There are locals who fight for the animals, feed them, protect them, and we must protect them. We must protect and support them to establish local DPM. I learned the word today, DPM systems, and collaboration is the key. Gitty from VETO and Luca from Tierschutzbund mentioned it before. And I also noticed the sentence from Petras, break the wall of silence. And so we will send reminding letters to the FIFA, to the Moroccan government. We will contact Spain and Portugal as co-hosting countries. We will contact the Moroccan king, and we try to involve soccer teams and fan groups here in the parliament and all across Europe. And we will ask all MEPs and also the intergroup for animal welfare here in the house for a co-sign of all the letters. And so we will become louder and we will put more pressure on all of the hosting countries. So again, thank you all for participating on this very important event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
I
you
just
all.
wanted to ask all the journalists that are online with us, please report on this. This is very important that also this message comes to general public and that they are aware what's happening. And this will obviously then raise the pressure. Thank you.
Breakfast buffet is still open.
Oh, that's a bit unfair. We'd all like to join, but we can't get through our screens.
Next time.
Very happily. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Very impressive.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thank you for organizing.